Just a brief teaching before we get to our announcements. I was thinking of something that would be helpful in terms of thinking about Divine Liturgy, and just some details about this service we did, Divine Liturgy. 1, 2, 3. Doing things with numbers. First one's obvious. 1. We have one Divine Liturgy. The service we just served, it is one complete service. Beginning at 9:30, when I elevate the gospel book and say, "Blessed is the kingdom," all the way up to the point where I say the dismissal that we just heard. One service in all of its completeness. And there is so much in that one service in all of that completeness. But one can be a lot for us to digest. So what helps is 2. The Divine Liturgy consists of 2 parts. It's a little obvious. The first part and the second part. The first part is referred to as the Liturgy of the Catechumens. It's understood as the teaching part of the liturgy. And it's basically from the beginning, "Blessed is the kingdom," through the homily, where I preach. And the point of that is that is the part where we kind of reach this apex with the gospel reading and my teaching, which is supposed to elaborate upon the gospel teaching. That's where we learn about our faith. And of course, that is all packaged is not a good word, but it's the word I have. Packaged with the hymns that tell us about the Sunday that we're experiencing specifically, because a lot of the hymnody relates to what we see on the calendar and in the readings there. So that's the first half. And there's a little footnote on church etiquette. And I don't fuss about this stuff. But kind of a common church etiquette thing is if you miss the gospel reading, you really shouldn't come for communion, because you basically miss the first half of liturgy. What's the second half of liturgy? The liturgy of the faithful. So think what happens after I do my homily. We have the great entrance with the gifts, and then we have that part, and this is kind of the key there. I have this odd phrase. The doors, wisdom let us attend. And the kids are probably like, well, why is Father talking about doors? There's nothing happening with doors. In the early church, anyone who was not part of the faith, that was their cue to leave. And there were people who had the appointed job. So it was the priest saying, shut the doors, everybody should be out, and the only people remaining in the church should be the faithful. And think about the very next thing that we do after I say that. We recite the Nicene Creed, often called the symbol of faith. I believe in one God. We express what we believe as Orthodox Christians. And that is the spirit with which we approach receiving, praying for and receiving Holy Communion. So that's 2. Liturgy of the Catechumens, Liturgy of the Faithful. What about the 3? Well, this is something that I don't think most people are aware of, especially the children, because they don't ever see this. But to serve a Divine Liturgy, every Sunday I come here and I actually do 3 services to prepare. So that's the 3. They're not long services, and I do them by myself. They're little short prayer services. So the first one, I come in and I pray in front of the icons. I basically ask for God's blessing to let me serve a liturgy that morning. So that's the first service that I do. And, you show up, you see me, I'm all dressed and ready to do this, do the liturgy. But the second service is that I put on all of my vestments, all these garments. And I did a count here. Each one has a prayer that I say before I put the item on. And there are 8 items that I put on. So it's 8 separate prayers that I do when I prepare for this. And then the third one, and this is probably the one that is you might be curious about it. When I do the great entrance here, I'm holding 2 things. So I have the chalice that we put the wine in, and then I have the diskos, which has the bread on it. The third preparation is a service, and I do it back in this corner back here, where I start with an empty chalice and an empty plate, and I have a loaf of bread, And there's a whole thing about how I cut certain pieces out to prepare for communion and put wine in that chalice and then put all the covers on. That's the service that probably takes the longest. That's about a half hour. So I'm usually doing that either before or just as we're starting the Orthros service. So our liturgy. There's one liturgy. It's all complete as one entity. It's in two parts. Liturgy of the catechumens, which focuses on the word and the teaching of the word, and the liturgy of the faithful, which focuses on communion. And our three preparations, well, my three preparations: praying in front of the icons, praying to put my garments on, and praying to prepare the gifts. Okay, so brief teaching for today. That's what we have.